here over the past few years, and every time I come, the amount of love I feel in this room is just incredible. It is truly overwhelming to me to be a part of this. For you guys, I mean, you're here every week, but I'm an outsider coming in, so I come in and I see the love and support that you're giving each other, the things that you're doing in the community, and it's really incredible. So I'm just so happy to be here and be a part of this again, so thank you. One suggestion though, I think you should think about changing your name, because I think something more along the lines of Center for the Open Heart, Center for Love would be more appropriate, but my suggestion.
Here. Give you a subtitle.
Yeah, subtitle. Give it a subtitle. Open Heart. Open-hearted living. How many of you, show of hands, when you were young, had a good model or a healthy model that you saw or were taught for how to repair conflict or hurt in a relationship? Just show of hands. Okay, so we have my daughter, one. Okay.
Good job.
One more.
Good job.
All right.
Trick question.
She was a plant, I believe. So we had two people, my daughter and one other, right? So that's what my experience too, right? Is that most of us have not been taught or didn't have a good model for how to repair things when we've been hurt in relationships. And it's something that I've seen over and over in my work, 'cause I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I see this continually where the repair is not full, where there's still some hurt, still some resentment, something going on, and it's not fully repaired, and then we kind of carry that with us in the relationship, right? And then something else happens, and it gets triggered again, and we feel hurt again, and then that's not fully repaired. And then we carry that, and these things sort of build up over time, and then we start to become distant from each other. And this is true not just for significant others. This could be parent-child relationships. It could be, friends. It could be siblings. Whatever it is, it's still the process is the same. This idea that if things are not fully repaired, and by fully repaired, my definition of that is that I can look at you or think about you, and I can feel love and appreciation again, right? I can feel it in my heart. That I look and we're together, and yes, I love and appreciate you again. That's when you know there's full repair, that we feel really connected again. If you're not there yet, then it's your responsibility, if you're not feeling that way, to keep working at it, right? To keep trying to get back to that full love and appreciation again. And it's very hard to do. I work on this stuff every day with clients, and it's still a challenge for me and my relationship. It's still a big problem. And it's because of the ego, right? Our ego wants to get in the way and try to control things. And this repair work is not a job where the ego can be in control, right? The ego, we have to be able to put our egos at least in check, at least to the point where we can observe it a little bit, where it's not controlling us. Because the ego wants to be right, the ego wants to keep ourselves separate, the ego wants to sort of disrupt our unity with the other person. Right? So I wanted to talk about it today, and my acronym for it is ROF, R-O-F, ROF. First one, R, is readiness, that we have to be ready to do it. I'm going to go into full detail in a moment. The O is for ownership, that we own what's going on for us, and that when we speak about it, we use ownership language. And then the F, which is the F word, forgiveness, which is very difficult to do, right? Very difficult to forgive. So we're going to go through these steps today, and I'd like to do it sort of as a demonstration. So what I'm going to do is just get this chair. And can I have someone who would be willing to be my my friend or partner or child or whatever it is, come on up.
Over here?
Yeah, just put my desk
Okay.
here,
So you want chairs facing each
yeah.
other?
Yeah, I'll just stand, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine I have a chair.
Do you want to mic this person?
As long as it's someone who can speak loud enough. You want to, okay.
Can they do that?
Of course you can.
But yeah, we'll mic her here. Okay.
So that way you don't have to worry about speaking.
Ooh.
That's probably not on.
Is it on?
Oh, it's on, it's on, it's on.
Great. What is your name?
Carol.
Carol. Okay, Carol. All right, so our first step is readiness. We are. We have to be ready to do this. Let me backtrack just for a moment because I want to explain. This discussion here is not about negotiation. It's not about problem solving. It's not about trying to figure something out. This is about repairing our relationship, repairing our connection. So if we were fighting about who's doing the dishes, or, you know, where we're going to dinner, or whatever else that we fight about, all the crazy things that we argue about or whatever, we essentially have to put that aside and talk about how we are being with each other, right? And so that's an important step, because oftentimes we include the issue sometimes with this, and then it gets disrupted. So if the issue that we have been in conflict about is something other than our connection, then we have to set that aside for now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first step, again, readiness. So that means I have to say to myself, okay, I want to try to repair this. This relationship is so important to me that I want to try to repair my connection with her. And I cannot be in full anger or frustration to do this. Because if I'm in that state, it's not going to go well, right? And if she's in that state, it's not going to go well. So this is where I've sort of calmed myself down. I've gotten to a better state of mind. Now I still may be feeling hurt. I still may be feeling some pain here. Maybe my feelings were hurt. Maybe something, you know, that's been bothersome or whatever. I can still be there, but I can't be in outright anger or frustration. Okay, and neither can she. So I may come to her and say, you know, I'd really like to repair things with you. Are
Steve,
you?
I'd like to repair things with you too, because I'm committed to a long-term relationship.
Okay, great. All right, so you're available to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So we have an agreement. She's ready to try this now, right? She's ready to at least see if we can do this, all right? All right, so that's step one, just readiness. We both have to be ready, right? And if she was still in some anger, then, you know, she might say, no, I'm not ready, I need a little bit more time, right? And I'd say, okay, no problem, let's try again later, you know, maybe in an hour from now or tomorrow or whatever it is, that I give her some time to get herself ready, okay? All right, now step two is, I call it ownership. That was sort of the best word that I can come up with this, because people often use the term like I statements and things like that, but for me a better term is ownership, where the language that we're using with each other has to be full ownership. I'm going to be speaking more about myself, my experience, what's going on for me, rather than about you. And in fact, we can think of like a line right here. So there's a line right here, and if I cross that line with any kind of accusation or blame, or anything like that, she's going to defend herself. She's going to automatically defend, right? And if she does it to me, I will start defending too. So we can't do that. We can't cross this line with any, if we're going to cross a line, it has to be in something like an appreciation or gratitude or something like that. It cannot be in any kind of blame. And these things can be disguised, right? I mean, it's hard sometimes, because a lot of it is about the energy that I'm in when I'm speaking to you, right? If I'm crossing the line trying to get you to be different in some way, right, you're going to feel that. And you're going to, psychologically, psychically, she's going to defend herself and put up a wall and try to protect, right? So I can't do that. I've got to stay over here, right? So I might start with some version of, I really didn't like the way I was with you.
I didn't like it either.
Yeah, I know I reacted, I got angry, frustrated, and that's not who I want to be with you. I want to treat you with love and respect and kindness. That's the way I want to be. I wasn't able to do that in this time.
I would appreciate love, respect, and kindness.
Yeah. I'm not sure how we can resolve this, but I want to with you.
I want it resolved too. I'd rather be at peace, but I don't know how either.
Yeah. All right, so if I'm fully owning and staying over here, right, that's gonna open up the chance for this thing to evolve into something productive and healthy, right? Because now it gives her the chance to do the same thing. She can now own and look inside, self-reflect, right? Again, if I come over like, I don't understand why you did that, you know? We've talked about this before, you know? You hurt me, why did you do that, right? Okay, so as soon as I do that, now boom, she's gonna defend, right? She's gonna tighten up and start to fight back, right? So this language has to be full ownership, right? So now let's say that, she did something to hurt me, so to speak. And I may still be the one to initiate this repair, because I'm feeling hurt, right? And I still may come to her and say, no, hey, I want to try to repair this, are you available? Kind of thing, right? And she says yes. Then I can come and say, I'm still feeling hurt by what happened. I'm still feeling a lot of pain around this, and I don't want to feel this way with you.
I'm sorry I threw all your clothes out on the lawn.
That's all right, I didn't want him anyway. All right, so there's ownership. Like, I'm still feeling hurt. I haven't got past it yet, but I'm going to express my hurt, and that's not attacking her. That's owning where I am with this. Hey, this is what's going on for me. I don't like that this is between us, and I'm hurting around this. So that, again, that gives her a chance to own what's going on for her, right? Yeah.
Is it a good idea, say, just kind of, in not in a moment of stress or whatever, to say, okay, we're gonna have some agreements on if something happens between us, so have sort of some preset parameters and preset agreements, saying, okay, if I come to you and say that, I would like to, reach out, maybe we could discuss this, and if you're not in that space, then you will let me know that, that's not a good time. But basically to have the groundwork already set so that you kind of fall into the process where, it's not like one person doesn't quite know what the other person, it's like, okay, this is what ownership means, and have those agreements already done, so that when the process goes, it's like the other person's going, it's like, well, wait a minute, what does ownership mean? So is that a good idea?
It's a very good idea. Yeah, I would highly recommend that, especially, and you could do that with any person, but especially if it's a significant other, right? Someone that this kind of stuff happens all the time. Almost daily we get hurt by something, right? So yeah, if you can talk about this thing ahead of time, make agreements like that. You can't make agreements in the moment because it's too late, right? It's like we're hurt, and so if you can speak about these kind of processes beforehand, make agreements like that, that is the ideal, right? So now we know kind of what we're expecting here, right? And then we also know that, let's say one person says, yeah, I'm ready, but then I start reacting, right? And I'm not really aware, and I'm just reacting. She can at least say something like, okay, maybe let's call time out. Maybe we're not ready for this right now. How about if we come back and do this another time, a little bit later, right? Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things not to do are things like, yeah, I'm really sorry that I reacted that way with you, but it was because you didn't listen to me.
It's all your fault.
Yeah.
It
You know?
started out
It was because-
positive when you said it, but it's because, you said because you negate everything.
Exactly. It just negated my apology, right? Because now I'm justifying it, right? I'm justifying, you know, my behavior in some way, right? So it's like I'm reaching out and I'm taking it back, right? And a lot of it has to do with the energy that you're in too. If I'm in an energy where I'm still kind of, then I might say something like that, right? You know, yeah, I'm really sorry that this happened, or I'm sorry, I was behaving this way, you know, but you shouldn't be that way, right? Right. Yeah,
A popular one is, I'm sorry you were offended.
I'm sorry you were offended,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's my least favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
I'm
'cause-
sorry you
yeah.
chose to feel this way.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, Yeah, that's kind of crossing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's a blame, but it's almost like patronizing or something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
a deflection.
Deflection, yeah, it's not going into here, yeah.
Another one that I used to get all the time is, I'm not saying you're wrong, but.
Yeah, but, right? Mhm. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm right.
No, not that one.
Mhm. So that's why sometimes you have to put the issue aside. Let's say, especially like it's easy to do this, it's easy to make this mistake with kids. If she was my daughter and let's say she did something that we talked about, but she made a mistake, right? And I got angry about it and I yelled at her, you know, and yelled at you, right? But I come back and I say, you know, I'm sorry I yelled, you know, I shouldn't have done that. But you can't leave your stuff on the floor, you can't do this, right? Again, now I've just sort of negated it, right? Remember, this is about my connection with you, my relation, how I'm treating you, right? How we're treating each other. That's what this conversation is about. And try to keep it separate, yeah.
It's also, I think, has something to do with the value of the other person as well. You talk about children, one of the things that you're supposed to never do if a child does something that you consider, for example, a dumb thing to do. You don't say to the child, you know, you're a dummy because you did this. It's just that you did something that wasn't, you separate them from the act.
Right, yeah, that's not
And
who
that's
they
what you
are.
have to do with this too, because you're needing to put the act elsewhere and discuss the relationship.
Exactly.
And you can't have the act involved.
Right, that's it. Mhm. Now, I still might say, you know, I was really frustrated, you know, by what happened, and I reacted, and that's not how I want to be with you, you know? I'm really sorry that I did that, I'm really sorry that it hurt you, because it seemed like it did hurt you. I don't know. Was that true? Did it hurt?
It hurt, but apology accepted.
All right, so now, you know, this dialogue, sometimes it's not one dialogue. Sometimes we may have to keep coming back to this, right, if it's not fully resolved. So, because if I'm feeling really hurt and I haven't fully, you know, resolved, we may have to keep coming back, right? And we may have to keep having these kind of conversations. But what I have found in my experience is that the more you're really coming from that open heart, from that space of love, or even if you are hurt with the true intention to repair, it's gonna evolve into that if you keep working at this. Any other questions before we go on to the next one? About the ownership language, right? Speaking about self. Apologies, you know, are not always necessary, right? They're not always, but if it feels authentic, if it feels sincere, you know, by all means, that can really bridge the gap again, right? This is also not about self-blame, so that's one thing that gets in the way too. If I'm like blaming and criticizing myself, it's gonna be hard to do this, because that's gonna get in my way, you know? It's hard to take full ownership when you're actually blaming, and this is paradoxical. If you're blaming yourself, you're not taking full responsibility for it. You're just kind of, you know, self-blame, right? So, that leads to the next step, okay? So getting back now to the idea of forgiveness, right? And then of course it's probably the more difficult one, but for me, my real definition of forgiveness is being able to let go of the hurt or the pain associated with whatever happened. To truly be able to let go. Like, okay, I've freed myself from that pain. And so it's an act of self-love, right, when I can do that. And I can also have compassion for her at the same time. So I freed myself and I have compassion for her. Sometimes we don't do it because we still feel like we need to protect ourselves. Because if I forgive, now I'm opening myself back up, right? That's what it feels like. If I have a definition that says, well, if I forgive, now I'm vulnerable, and you're probably gonna hurt me again, now I'm gonna keep it up. I'm gonna keep my wall, my emotional wall up, right? So it's hard to do that. It's hard to let that go. And for me, forgiveness is not about necessarily words, like I forgive you, that kind of stuff. It's more just about the experience of letting go, right? And now we can actually see each other with that love and appreciation again. It's really important to be fully honest with yourself here. It's really easy to pretend like it's gone, but there's still something there, right? There's still something kind of deep within, and you want to be really honest about that, right? Because if not, it's gonna resurface. It's gonna come back in some kind of a way. It's gonna get in the way again of our connection, right? All right, so I'm feeling a lot better about things. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm better.
All right, but not fully there yet?
Well, I just would need a commitment that you wouldn't leave me stranded at the grocery store again.
I'm gonna do my absolute best to never do that again. Because you're important to me. And I don't wanna treat you, I don't wanna do that, you know? I don't wanna leave you hanging, leave you out there like that. That's not how I wanna treat you. So I will make that commitment. I'll do my absolute best not to do that again.
What are you gonna do different?
Aren't you guys getting into the act itself?
Yeah, we're starting to move in. So that's,
Yeah.
now, once we've healed it, then we can get into that part. If it's not fully healed yet, then it's hard to do this, right? Mhm.
So at that point, it's like taking responsibility, like, maybe you didn't call him to tell him you were going to a different store, or is there a piece where the other person's like, you know what, I could have done something different, or maybe I reacted badly to you forgetting because I know that, maybe your phone wasn't charged up and I couldn't reach you. So is it important at that point for both sides to be able to go into that, it's like, well, yeah, two of us created this, so two of us can settle that out.
Yes, well, the more ownership we both take, right, the more likely this is gonna, resolve in a way that we feel connected again, right? Yeah, because even, let's say I did make the mistake and I left her there, but then she got really mad and yelled at me, right? So that's her part of this, right? And she could own that and say, yeah, I did react that way, So so you're saying right now that it feels like before we can feel connected, you would need a commitment from me?
Yes, because I have abandonment issues.
Okay, yeah. So it felt like I abandoned you.
Yes, I felt abandoned.
Yeah, I definitely don't wanna do that.
Good,
What about right now? Do you feel connected to me?
I do.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about ways that we can do this in the future that this won't come up.
Okay.
So then we can go into that. All right, well, next time I'll do this, yeah.
Yeah, as I replay this in my home, what I notice is the lack of trust. Probably because things have been done this way for so long. So can you talk about any aspect of trust, rebuilding trust? Is there?
I think this in part is rebuilding trust, right? Is that vulnerability, that openness to sharing with each other in this way. So that's part of the trust. Now, I will say this, if you're in a relationship with someone that is constantly, let's say I'm vulnerable and I'm being very vulnerable and open with you, but you're continuing to attack me, right? And if that happens repeatedly, I mean, you really have to consider whether you want this person in your life, right? Or you want this person in this kind of relationship with them, right? I mean, that's just part of being sort of discerning as to who we are gonna bring close to us, right, in our lives, and what kind of relationships we're gonna have, right? So I think this is, this sort of vulnerability is the trust building part of it, right? And that's, that's a not easy thing to do. How many of you are familiar with attachment theory? One, okay. There's over the last, I would say, maybe 10, 15 years, there's a lot more research has been done about, it's called attachment theory, because the idea is that when we're infants, when we're sort of infant to like 5, 6 years old, we develop what they call an attachment style with our caregiver, whoever that is, right? So there's, we could call the healthy attachment, which is where the caregiver is responding to our needs in a loving way, et cetera, et cetera. So now we develop a healthy attachment with that person. And if we've done that, then later on in life, it's a lot easier to develop that with significant others or other people in our lives, right? If we have been somehow neglected or the attachment wasn't secure, and there's different sort of categories to this, but that if there's some disruption in the attachment, that gets wired into our system, into our nervous system, and so then we start replaying that later on in life. And so it becomes a lot harder, and we will tend to either pull back or protect ourselves, not want to engage because we're afraid of getting hurt. So all that comes into play too. So sometimes it's helpful to try to figure out that for yourself, Am I willing to be open and vulnerable with someone, especially with the person that I love? Am I willing to open my heart and try and connect with them? All right. Any other questions about building trust or any other aspect of that?
I was listening, but I wasn't taking in. Can you go over attachment theory one more time, please?
The way we form bonds or attachment with our caregivers early on in life is what we carry to us, our adulthood. And it's gonna affect the way we are with other people in our lives because of the security or lack of security we felt as infants, probably infant to 5, 6 years old. That's kind of a critical juncture in our life. And our nervous system gets wired in such a way that if we didn't develop healthy, secure attachment, then it's more difficult. It's not impossible, because people can overcome this. We can all overcome this, but it becomes much more challenging to do it if we haven't had that secure attachment. And there's different categories. It's an interesting topic now because they're called avoidance and different levels of insecure attachment, basically. Yes.
If you're adopted, is there recognition of the initial parting of the birth mother then to the adopted parents or mother? Have they tracked the impact of infants at that juncture?
I don't know. I know they've done a lot of studies on infants that were, let's say, in institutions, where they were separated from the mother really early on, and now they don't have a significant person there, and they struggle. I mean, they really struggle. Your question is probably going to really depend on the circumstances, not only the pregnancy, but after birth, how long they were with the mother, right? If it's an immediate thing and the adopted mother is able to form secure attachment, I'm sure it's probably okay. Probably gonna. I don't know the studies though. Just to
Yes, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay in the family nucleus that created you. You can, it can be healthy to transfer over to
Yes.
adopted.
An adopted parent, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Especially if that person is loving and has a style of attaching to you that's very healthy and secure, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
All right, any other questions? Yes?
So within this, way of communicating, and taking ownership and really developing, an affinity for the other person, you wanna make it work. Is there times when this really just doesn't work? When the line can't be crossed, even though you've tried it a few times, and the person just is unable to receive your communication? Do you just wait it out, or do you just keep trying, or do you try, is there an advanced communication formula after this?
Well, that's, first of all, I would say that's case by case, right? How long you're gonna keep trying, right? But if that's the case, then it's very likely that one or both of you would do well to go into therapy, right?
Okay.
Or something to try to heal, that disruption, right? Because if you're trying over and over and it's not working, then there's obviously something that hasn't been healed, right? In one or both people, right?
So then therapy would take it out into the realm to see, are you actually doing it properly even?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing that does happen though, people, right, we get into a relationship and then we keep trying and it doesn't work and then we give up on it,
Right.
right? And then and sometimes we just stay in the relationship even though it's not good and we're not getting the intimacy that we really want, but we just kind of go along, right? That happens a lot, unfortunately. But my thing is that I really don't want people to give up on that. I want you to, to keep trying to regain that connection, and whatever it takes. If that means going into therapy or, going to like all of the things you guys have here, all the healing things that you guys offer here, right, can help that kind of stuff, right? To release those negativity, negative beliefs, etc. Right? Yeah.
One of the results of not fixing the problem is that it can go from generation to generation. My older brother doesn't talk to my parents because of things that happened in his childhood, and they never fixed that problem, and now his son doesn't talk to him because of the same thing, because that's how he learned that you treat your parents, because of the way his father treated his parents. And it can go from generation to generation until it gets fixed.
Absolutely, right? And I feel like it's our responsibility to break that, right? To break that cycle. Like I don't want to continue any of those cycles that I experienced. And we have to find a way to for us, we can only take responsibility for ourselves to break those things. But that happens a lot. Oftentimes we do become our parents, right? Or we do become the people in our lives that were not good to us or whatever. Even though we really don't want to, we still sort of carry those traits. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much
Okay.
for being here. So I'd like to end with a story about Jack and Jill. Now we all know Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch that pail of water. But then after that, they got married, had kids, and lived an okay life for a while, but then they started getting into conflict, started fighting. And Jack, was not always the best husband. Sometimes did hurtful things to Jill and had problems with his kids too, and just wasn't happy in his relationship. So he finally got tired of it, and he heard that there was an old sage many miles away that answered questions. So he went to see this sage, and he said to the sage, I don't know what's going on in our relationships. They're not working. I don't know what to do. So can you please tell me, is there a secret or something that I don't know? And the sage looked into his crystal ball, stopped, and went, oh man, look, forget about that. This is your last night alive. You're going to die by morning. So Jack was freaking out. He took off running back home, went to his wife and said, honey, this is my last night together. Look, I'm so sorry for the way I've been with you. I could have been such a better husband. And to my kids, he was apologizing to his kids, and they forgave each other, they reconnected, and they had this one last night together of just appreciation and love and gratitude. And the next day, Jack woke up. And he's like, what happened here? I thought I was gonna die. So he runs back to the sage, right? And he says, hey man, your crystal ball was wrong, man. He said I was gonna die. And the sage says, it gave you the answer you were looking for.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me again. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you so much, Steve.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. So can we have the choir come back up, please?
Where'd Steve go? Oh, did you want to mention anything about your book?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Your book.
So I have a handout that, kind of an article that I wrote about this topic, so that's, you guys can have that. And also,
Thank
the books are for free, you can take a book. The book is not necessarily about this topic per se, but it's a book that I wrote about relationships. It's called The Enlightened Relationship, Mastering the Metaphysics of Love. And you guys are welcome to take a copy.
Fantastic.
And enjoy.
Thank you so very much. Where's our doc, Eileen?
She's busy.
Okay,
Eileen's busy.
all right. So do we want to do baskets then and not do ours? I don't know. Okay, I said to look for baskets.
Baskets are here.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Well, now we find out.